Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Trekker's Delight Comrades, where we talk about race relations and discrimination and how it applies to our comrades in Star Trek. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Roy. I'm a lifelong Trekker and expert on the original series. You can give me a trivia test on it, and I'll probably pass with flying colors. And it's a close second to that, maybe. Danger, I don't know. It's a toss-up. We still haven't figured it out yet. Go ahead, Danger.
Challenge in the first minute of this episode. I love it.
Let's see. I started watching the original series in 1966 when it came out. I would have been 8 back then. Pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, a lifelong Trekker. And, William Danger Newman's the name. Star Trek's the game, especially for this show. So anyway, looking forward to some interesting discussion tonight. We got some very cool episodes to chat about, I think. Right, Jermaine?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. My name is Jermaine Watson. I'm also a lifelong Trekkie, but hey, I realized that it doesn't compare to either one of you. I'm putting you all on the same pedestal. But I'm here. My God, I'm here. My God, I'm here.
That's the important thing. You're here now.
Yes, I am. Roy?
All right, so with that, let's go ahead and cue up our intro to the show.
What's up, Trekkies? It's your boy Wil Wofford here with Trekker's Delight, a Star Trek-inspired podcast. Before we get started, we're going to give away $100, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel where we will announce the lucky winner every single week. Now, welcome to Trekker's Delight.
All right, I think we got it that time. Okay, so in this episode of Comrades, we're going to be discussing a classic TOS episode called Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, guest starring Frank Gorshin. You know him from Batman. He played the Riddler, and I guess he just loves wearing tights, so here he is again. I've created a nice little intro for that episode as well, so see you in a few minutes. Play that. On the way to decontaminate the planet Arianis, the Enterprise encounters a stolen shuttlecraft and pursues it. They use a tractor beam to bring the shuttle aboard, and we meet Lokai. The half-black, half-white humanoid feels persecuted at Kirk's interrogation over the theft of the shuttlecraft and refuses to answer any more questions. Moments later, the Enterprise collides with an invisible one-man ship, and we meet Commissioner Beale. An alien with similar pigmentation is our other guest. He claims to be in pursuit of the political traitor Lokai. Kirk takes Beale to sickbay to confront Lokai, and the two use terms such as slavery, oppression, master race, lack of equality, and so on. Beale insists they return to their home planet Charon so that Lokai can face judgment. Kirk refuses, so Beale uses mind powers to steer the ship to Charon. All attempts to apprehend and stun the aliens prove ineffective, so the captain initiates the ship's self-destruct sequence. Beale releases the ship, and they head to Arianis to decontaminate the planet. Meanwhile, Lokai finds an audience in the recreation room to listen to his side of the story. Spock eavesdrops as Lokai tells tales of the persecution he and his kind face on his planet. Sulu and Chekhov informed Lokai that this sort of persecution was primitive 20th century thinking and has long been eliminated. Spock and Kirk socialize with Beale and listen to his side of the conflict. Spock mentions the theory of evolution. Lieutenant Uhura reads a message from Starfleet Command over the intercom. It's not the news Commissioner Beale was hoping for, so he expresses his frustration. The comrades point out to Beale that he and Lokai seem to be of the same breed, citing their similar pigmentation. Beale assumed it was obvious to the comrades that he is black on the right side, while Lokai and his people are white on the right side. Spock points out how Vulcans had once been wildly emotional and were often committed to irrationally opposing points of view, leading to destruction. Beale is not convinced. After decontaminating the planet, Chekhov informs the captain he is unable to set course for Starbase 4. Beale confesses he shorted out the directional controls and the self-destruct circuits. The crew is like, oh crap, here we go again. Lokai and Beale go at each other again with their version of name-calling and hate speech. Once in the visual range of Charon, they discover every humanoid is dead because they have annihilated each other. Kirk implores them to stop fighting since their cause is now pointless. Lokai refers to them as idealistic dreamers and jumps into the turbolift. They end up chasing each other around the ship while images of burning cities play in their minds. They transport themselves to the surface of Charon. The crew make the sad observation that all they have left is their hatred. All right. So, a little over-the-top message there, trying to hammer home the whole race thing through the window of the 1960s during the civil rights movement, of course. It didn't get great reviews from people like Harlan Ellison, who wrote City on the Edge of Forever. He said it was a little over the top. So, but I liked it. I mean, I thought, to the general audience, it tries to at least get the message across in some way. It didn't seem to change a lot of things, but it did bring Star Trek fans, a little bit maybe closer together and more accepting of everything that was going on during that time. And Danger and I, we lived through that, right? What do you remember from that period?
Just a lot of wondering what was going to happen next and where things were going and how far it was going to go. But I remember specifically watching that episode, and I think it's probably about the halfway mark where, they're I think it's Kirk that's talking to both of the aliens, and he said, I don't understand why you guys don't get along, and well, we're not the same race. Well, what do you mean you're not the same race? You're both half white and half black. And Beale says, I'm half white on the right side. He's half black on the right side. And that's what distinguished the two groups there. Other than the superficial coloring, they were identical, an identical species, much like, we have black, white, Asian, whatever. They happen to have, people that were white on the right side and black on the left, or black on the right side and white on the left. And that's what allowed them to create the discrimination between one group and the other. So if you had the right coloring, you were running the society, like Commissioner Beale, and all the people that he ran with. Much like here, if you were white at the time, you were kind of pretty much running society, and those that were minorities or of other races didn't have the same power. And in their society, they eventually took it so far that, neither side was able to compromise, and it ended up completely destroying their civilization. And so I think that was the message there that Star Trek was trying to get across, whether heavy-handed or not, that, if we can't learn to embrace and accept our differences and learn to work together towards common cause, that we're going to end up that same way.
Yeah, I agree. So, Jermaine, what do you remember about that episode?
Agreed. Even looking at it all these years later, I think the very first time that I saw it, it was probably either it had to have been in the 90s, the first time that I saw that particular episode. And the fact that, they black on one side, white on the other side, as soon as you saw them and you knew that they had a problem, it was put in your face. And I think that was done for a specific reason. They weren't trying to hide from the issue. They were trying to look, this is what we're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
And they made it so easy to understand, so easy to comprehend, and they dressed it down to its most minuscule level. It's just a difference between the two of you. And is this what you're really going to fight about? And looking at it also from the prism of, 300 years in the future. Yeah. It looks petty. It looks small. And again, that's exactly what they were, in my opinion, trying to go for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It did seem kind of, go ahead.
Yeah. I thought it was good. I mean, sometimes I think when you do shows like that, the message might be too subtle for some people. And I kind of like the fact that sometimes it's just right there in your face. There's no mistaking it. When it pops out, I mean, I was probably 8 or 9 at the time. So, when I saw it and suddenly, they made he's, white on the right side, he's black on the right side. I was like, oh shit! I didn't even catch that.
You didn't even catch that. You didn't even catch that. You don't even notice.
Right. I didn't even realize that, and I'm like, wow. Okay.
So I can imagine aliens coming to Earth and looking at all humans and thinking we all look the same to them.
Right.
But we see these differences that tends to divide us. I mean, they even had names for each other, monotone human, for us, monotone humans, useless pieces of bland flesh, monocolored trash, do-gooders, bleeding hearts.
Right.
They had names for us.
Sacks of water. What was it?
Ugly bags of mostly water.
Useless pieces of bland flesh was one of the things that Lokai called the Enterprise crew. So, it's two mentalities with extreme viewpoints. So it wasn't logical to Spock, And one little side note: this is actually the very first time that the self-destruct sequence was ever initiated. Used all the way up to Picard in season 2, episode 1, Stargazer, when he called it the auto-destruct.
Right.
And the stock footage of them running down the hallways, that was World War II bomb rating stuff. So I don't know if you noticed in my intro, there was kind of an angle when you first see Frank Gorshin. I did that sort of an homage to Frank Gorshin's role in Batman, because you always see the lair for the bad guys in Batman was always filmed sideways. So here's a trivia question for you, Danger. Can you think of another Batman star that appeared in the original series? Another guest from Batman.
I can't come up with one off the top.
Okay. It was Yvonne Craig. Yvonne Craig. She played Batgirl. She was Marta, the Orion slave girl in Whom Gods Destroy, season 3, episode 16.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's good stuff right there.
You know what? Comments? I've got a question about that episode that occurred to me when I watched it. It was maybe couple of years ago, I think it was on, probably about the start of the pandemic. They were, we started watching Star Trek over our lunch hour because we were working
Yeah.
from home, and we had the extra time. And I remember watching that episode, right? And I remember thinking, I wonder if they considered casting an African American as Loki in that. And if they had, would it have had the same impact, or would people have, because it was an African American with, half black, half white, people would have seen, okay, he looks African American, and maybe they already would have said, well, yeah, he's right to discriminate against him. So maybe using two white actors to show that these two really are the same, and it is just the superficial coloration that makes them separate. Maybe that was an intentional choice to give it more of an impact. I don't know. What do you think, Jermaine?
Yeah, no. I definitely see where you're going, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional or not. It would be interesting to be able to talk to Roddenberry or somebody that was part of that show to see if that was an active consideration in that. But
that's how it sounds. But yeah,
I thought
it might have been too
well
obvious.
because at least it worked well for me at the age of 8 or 9, whatever, when I saw it, because it totally caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting anything, and I think that was great. It was a good punch right there. It's like, oh shit!
Supposed to hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Agreed. So I think that's our time for this segment. We got another segment coming up, and that'll be hosted by Jermaine whenever you're ready to take it over, sir.
Yes, thank you so very much. That was an excellent show. Thank you. So now we're about to transition into Deep Space Nine. The episode is Far Beyond the Stars. Now, this is considered one of Star Trek's best episodes. And what I tried to do, I tried to make it as concise as possible. But look, this one was difficult, right? There were so many different points that I had to get. Before I get started, though, just want to let everyone know it was directed by Avery Brooks, the star of the show. This is a recap of Deep Space Nine's Far Beyond the Stars. In the opening of the episode, Sisko and Major Kira are commiserating about the loss of a Federation ship to the Dominion and Cardassians. Benjamin's father is on the station visiting him and Jake. Captain Sisko makes a comment about how he feels the Federation makes positive steps in the right direction, and then all of a sudden things get taken from them, and he wonders whether or not he's got enough strength left in him to continue the struggle. His father counsels him and tells him that no one is indispensable, but wants him to really think about his decision. It is in that moment that Sisko sees someone on the bridge of the station. This someone is out of character. Later, while talking to Cassidy Yates, he sees another character and this time decides to follow him. And he ends up in New York, 1950s. Back on the station, Bashir discovers that what's happening to Sisko is similar to what happened when the prophets had given him visions. Back in the 1950s, Benny, who is played by Sisko, is in a writer's room. An artist presents the group with a rendition of Deep Space Nine, which immediately makes every part of Benny's physical body react and immediately accepts the drawing for a story he will write. Readers of the stories are wanting to know who the writers are, but the owner of the publication does not want to put out the image of their one and only female or black authors. While leaving the office, Vinny runs into two cops who begin to question why he's there, what he's wearing, and his employment. While feeling harassed, Benny assuredly explains his situation, but not without a threat from one of the police officers that if they were to see him again, he will experience a different outcome. On his way home, a preacher tells Benny that the prophets need him to express what's on his heart so that his words can set people free. While home, Benny begins to write and realizes what he writes is amazingly becoming his reality. The next day, Benny visits his girlfriend who works at a diner. She attempts to convince him to quit writing and go into the restaurant business. Then the ball player from Sisko's visions walk in. After some light flirting with Benny's girlfriend, she asks why a famous ball player is still willing to live in the city. To which he responds that they're still getting used to him playing with them and that living with them is a whole other matter. Then Jimmy, the local man with the hookup, walks in and tries to sell Benny a watch. Benny asks why he hasn't tried to get a real job. Jimmy laughs and says, "As what? A dishwasher?" and laughs. He likes being his own boss and setting his own hours. The two of them argue about whose life is better, which is a retread on the dynamics between Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Benny explains that this time he's going to be writing a story about colored people living in outer space and attempts to convey how this could change how people feel about blacks in America. Jimmy continues to laugh, and Cassie almost gives him a worried look. But back at the office, everyone is applauding Benny for the great writing that he's done. They love the attention to detail and how it affects women and their placement in society, but the editor walks in and crushes Benny's soul. He tells Benny that he cannot publish the article because the hero is a Negro and the head of a space station. He says people won't believe it. He fears it might even cause a race riot. He tells Benny the only way he'll run the story is if the captain were white. Back at the diner, Benny tells his girlfriend and Jimmy his story was rejected. Jimmy explodes and reminds them that no matter when or where Negroes are, they will always be considered niggers. Realities are starting to bleed into each other, and it is affecting Benny. Again, the pastor encourages Benny to write the words to the path of righteousness. Benny goes home and continues writing. More images from both worlds continue to bleed into each other, causing Benny to believe he's seeing things. In a compromise, when he agrees to allow the first story that he's written to be the dream of a Negro, which allows the story to not be true and yet hopeful, full of excitement and ready to share his story, he runs into Jimmy, who looks nervous and scared. Still excited, Benny runs into the diner and tells Cassidy the good news as he kisses her passionately. They make plans for later. They run into the preacher, who congratulates Benny, but warns him that the path of the prophets lead into darkness and pain. This scares Cassidy as the preacher takes Benny's ear to sense his pa. Hope and despair walk arm in arm, he tells him. They hear shots and Benny runs towards it. He realizes Jimmy has been shot and overcome by grief and emotions. He struggles to get him, and the cops stop him and begin fighting. When Benny gets to the office, he learns that the publication won't run. The publisher has decided not to run the article because the publication did not live up to his expectations. Acknowledging this, Benny then, in defiance, quits his job. They ask Benny to try to stay calm. Benny says, no, being calm has never got him a damn thing. He cries that he's a human being and acknowledges that the future he created is real and no one can stop an idea from existing. In the back of an ambulance, the pastor tells Benny to rest easy and that he's walked in the path of the prophets. There is no greater glory. Needing to understand whether he is Benjamin Sisko or Benny, the pastor tells him that he is both the dreamer and the dream. Back on Deep Space Nine, Captain Sisko wakes up. According to Bashir, everything is back to normal with his brain scans, but he can't explain why. In Sisko's cabin, his father enters. He wants to know whether Benjamin will remain in Starfleet. Reflecting on his recent experience, Sisko affirms that he will remain on the space station. Guys, that was a lot in less than an hour.
I know, it's hard to fit in these synopsis in just a couple of minutes,
Well, even so, when I was negotiating like what to put in, it was like some things like you almost had to talk about them because they became important later.
Right, exactly.
And so it was, and especially for those who might not have seen this particular episode, there are some people out here who haven't watched Star Trek, or all the episodes to all the shows, and so it's sometimes a little good to go over all of that. So to me, Danger, to what you said, I think in the previous segment, this was one of those episodes where they weren't trying to hide from what was. They were like bam, like in your face, and even like some small anecdotal evidence about the lives that these people lived and how it affected them. I don't know, like if you can recall the first time that you ever saw this particular episode, like what were your thoughts about it? I don't know who wants to go first. You know what? I don't even know if either of you have even seen this episode.
I've
It's been a
seen
long
it,
time.
but it was a while back, and I'm trying to remember more details about it. Your intro is very good though, and I can kind of remember fleeting impressions of it the first time I saw it, and I thought it was a good episode, and I liked it. It really kind of showcased the difficulty for African American writers and authors of the time, and how difficult it was for them to publish anything that showed African American people in a good light in leadership roles or anything like that. And you really felt like, it's just sad that society is like that, was like that, and to some degree is like that even today. We've seen some of the major science fiction awards have issues where they've tried to bring in more diverse material from different writers with different perspectives, and there's been kind of a backlash against that by certain groups, that don't think it should be changed, and I think that's wrong. I think it needs to embrace all cultures and all peoples, and I think the more diverse science fiction is, it only makes it richer for everybody. And so that's kind of what I think.
So like in this particular episode, what I thought was also good was not them, but the episode itself was illuminating the fact that you had some very well-known people who were known in both groups meaning white community, black community, and the comment was, why do you still live here? And his response was basically, look, I'm still trying to make it in the game.
Right.
Don't make me move, because that's a whole new can of worms.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? So
right.
It's talking about housing. It's talking about all layers upon layers of different things
Right.
that blacks during that time had to face. And this was before the civil rights movement, right?
Yeah.
This is in the 1950s. Well,
Yeah.
it kind of started in the 50s, but I mean, the culmination of it was the 1960s.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Roy.
Yeah, for me, this is one of those fun episodes, and that's what I liked about Deep Space Nine is they had some fun with their episodes, unlike what Next Generation and Voyager did. Is they just kind of went outside and did some really fun things. I mean, the actors got to get out of their costumes for once, and play other people. You still had the same people. Kind of like the episode where, Jadzia Dax went back in time and got to see Kirk and Spock, like right there in the same room with them. They did fun things like that. And this one was fun, but with a message too, and it almost makes me wonder if they're trying to think about the struggles that Gene Roddenberry might have had when he was trying to, pitch some of his episodes, that seemed to cross a lot of barriers that the networks were like, whoa, we can't do that,
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And it's especially at the end. So no, Roy, you made an excellent point. I remember when I first saw this in the 90s, I remember thinking that was, part of like what was going on when they were writing this. But towards the end of it, watching it, year after year after year after year after year, it changes its meaning. And what I mean is, when I first saw this particular episode, I had not seen anything like that before. I didn't see police officers treat men on the street in a particular way. I didn't. Honestly, I didn't. And the only idea of a police officer beating a black man at that time, I was still in high school, right?
Sure.
It was foreign to me, and it wasn't until like Rodney King, and of course this was after Rodney King, right? This was after Rodney King, and so that was part of what was going on in the culture at that particular time. But all of those different elements were being exposed, all in one episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like when we say race and discrimination, like was a lot going on in this one episode, and that's why I really wanted to talk about this episode.
Yeah, no, it's a good episode, and just hearing your recap of it makes me want to go watch it again, just to kind of refresh my memory.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Season 6, I think it's episode 16. I think something like that.
Okay.
For those of you on Paramount Plus,
Far Beyond the Stars, right?
Yes, sir. That's it.
All right.
All right, y'all. It has been just at 30 minutes. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Again, excellent show, Roy. Excellent show. Thank you, Danger, for joining us.
You're
of
welcome.
course, we're going to be there for you next time that you do this. All right.
Nice. I hope so.
Oh, no doubt.
And just for you, Jermaine, you are the dreamer and the dream.
See you.
From your show.
Live long and prosper, y'all.
Later.
Now, again, I'm going to say this again because we're near the end of our show. If you are our allies, we are not talking to you. We are not talking to you. This does not... Okay? We're not talking to you. Stop trying to take our and make it your goddamn business. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't got nothing to do with you.
Our experience of grief independently.
Bruh.
Yes.
I love that they're in the comments.
So much is like, I'm just reading the comments.
Yeah. They should run their child out. That's such a good point, Will. God, that's such a good point. And he's really thought about it too. He should be here. Will, get over here.
I thought he had a girlfriend on Insta. It's been ages since I've mucked about, but.
Okay, moving on. Let's move on.
Well, yeah, we gotta move on.